They say patience is a virtue, but with our kids, it's a requirement. Today, our special guest, Kristina Pezza, is going to tell us all about ways to incorporate patience into our daily lives through her own story of working to overcome childhood trauma. Kristina is an award-winning and best-selling author, creator, and artist who ignites the imaginations of children and their parents through her limited edition animals and touching storybooks. Her humble beginnings in a small farm town where they only had one traffic light sparked her creativity at a young age, and her adopted home of New York City keeps her inspired daily. Kristina's curiously curated creations feature a magical array of warm, cuddly, and comforting creatures, along with storybooks and coloring books that help parents and kids improve their communication and deepen their relationships. Wait until you hear all of the things that Kristina does. She's a baker, she's an artist, she's a knitter, a crocheter, she does all kinds of things. I can't wait for you to hear more from her. Welcome, Kristina Pezza, to the show. Hello, this is Mary Jo Tinlin from the Teaching Your Toddler Show. Today we have a very special guest. Kristina Pezza is with us. She's going to talk to us about patience, which is a very important topic for any parent, no matter what age your child is. But she also has a very special series of books that she'd like to tell us about too that help support that. So, Kristina, welcome to the show today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mary Jo. Yes, so I'm Kristina Lucia Pezza. I am a children's author and illustrator. And in light of what you said, how I'm going to be talking about patience today, the mission of my book series, the Bella Lucia book series, is all about communication and and developing communication between us and our children through the recognition and identification of feelings. And patience is a big element that this involves. And how I got to this mission actually comes from a very personal space. I was raised in a family dynamic where feelings were not acknowledged. And because feelings weren't acknowledged, there wasn't a lot of communication, and there also wasn't a patience. I was one of those children, and because of this, I was abused in a very systematic way in many, and not only at home, but also in school, et cetera, et cetera. Because of this lack of communication. And with the lack of communication and the lack of and no talk of feelings or recognition of feelings, there also was a little patience. And I started drawing formally when I was 7 years old. So my art has always been a big part of my life. And it was always assumed, oh, you're good at drawing because your grandfather was good at drawing. And anything, and I was also one of those kids where I could learn very quickly. But however, if I did it well, it was like, well, you're supposed to do it well. Or if I didn't do it right the first time, I was scolded, like, oh, you got to start watching me. You can't, you got to figure this out. You got to figure this. There was a lot of lack of patience. And I realize those now when looking back on it, and also this is also me going through my healing journey. There were so many traumas. And the first thing my therapist did for me, I remember in our first session, was hand me the feelings list. And it literally was like I was looking at a foreign language. I might as well looking at Japanese. I mean, I had no idea what I would say. I was like, oh, I'm fine. And fine is not a feeling. Okay is not a feeling. And it is a skill for us to dig deep and say, I'm feeling really happy right now. Or, you know what, I'm feeling agitated, and also have that space to step back and realize that. And, an example I can give from my childhood of where there was a lack of patience on me. So anyone out there, so I'm a baker and a cook, and I love to bake and I love to cook. And I started formally, not formally, but I started really baking and cooking on my own by the time I was 10 years old. And I remember at 10, I think I was 10, maybe 11 max, I cooked an entire dinner for my family, chicken, vegetable, rice, the whole bit. And one of my parents criticized it. And they said, well, we're not going to do that chicken recipe again. There was no acknowledgement that their 10-year-old cooked an entire meal for a family of
Oh,
five
oh my gosh.
single-handedly. And
Wow.
another big example I give, and I find when I'm in my ACA meetings, people really relate to this example. So I'd love to share it with your audience. So I'm from an Italian family. I mean, if you're seeing how I look, you know my name, like everyone's like, of course you're Italian. I'm like, I know, manja, manja. So by the time I was 12, I could make homemade pizza dough from scratch. And I remember the first time I made it on my own, my mother scolded me. She's like, I know what you did wrong. Like, you got to start watching me. You should know this by now. And I never made that mistake again. And to this, like, and I love making pizza dough. It's one of my favorite things to make. Like, and even kneading the dough, anyone out there who's a baker knows, like, it's a skill to know how to knead. Like, you have to use your back muscles. And yes, I'm a dancer, so I get it. Like, I use muscles that we don't usually use in everyday life. So I get I have that advantage. But at the same time, and even there's this one pie I make at Christmas now since my mom passed. And again, I've been baking for years so it really was no big deal when I started baking it. And I realized I put all these stories in my head because my mother said this story that was just such this difficult thing to do, and only she could do it. And I remember again doing it as a teenager and making a mistake. But again, it was a skill I wasn't taught or I wasn't shown, and it was folding the egg whites in. And again, I watched my mom do it once, and that's how I learned to fold egg whites in. And and so the biggest thing with my therapy is I realized because of these traumas, so when you're abused, you go one way or the other. And if you ask me, my personal belief is we're already instilled to be either procrastinators or overachievers. And I think an environment, whether it's positive or negative, in my sense, my situation, it was negative, it enhanced my overachiever. But the reality is, as an overachiever, it does need to be nurtured. It does need to be calmed down. Like last night, I was in the studio and we were working on we were going through all the dances and working on t the technique through each of the dances. I dance international Latin. And one of the instructors, I swear to God, I have very long legs, and how I have not kicked someone when I do a ronde is beyond me. And my like flies, and everyone gets so close to me. But luckily, like, and I've done ballet, like I do a ballet bar, so I know how to like hook my leg and if someone gets near me. But I was just doing a simple spin and my hand hit one of the instructors, but he walked like, I'm here and he's here. And it's like, dude, you're a professional dancer. I'm an amateur. Like, learn your space. But again, I, the reason I'm bringing this up is like I've learned as a creative and from healing, you do need patience not only with yourself, but you also need people who are going to give you patience and going
Mhm.
to give your space. Like, we're not designed to get everything on the first try. And as an aunt, as a godmother, one of the biggest things I love observing, especially in my niece and nephew, because like when it's your blood, I don't know, it's just different, it has a different flavor to it, right? So watching my nephew like going from the imp to the roll over to the crawl to the push toy to the actual walking and then climbing stairs and seeing him go through those feelings of frustration or agitation, but not giving up. And I also noticed too that we all cheered him on. And even my niece now, she's going to be 8 months in another week. Again, we're all cheering her on. And I feel as adults, we still need that space with each other. We still need to cheer each other on. And also, as our children are growing, they also still deserve that space to be cheered on because it's so easy to say, oh, what's the big deal? They put on a shoe. No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Learning how to tie your shoes. It's a big deal learning how you can put on that rain boot. That's a huge accomplishment. And seeing my nephew put on his rain boots, I can't tell you how proud I am. I'm like, oh my God, you're putting on your rain boots. Like you see how
Aw.
excited he is? No, happy. And even my niece, I see her like trying, she's only I guess she's about to be 8 months, and she's trying to stand already and do all these things because she sees her older brother. My nephew's 4 now, and like it's just so amazing. And something else I would love to share because I'm also a knitter and crocheter, and I remember asking another relative who's also an artist like myself, just to ask her, do you ever draw around your son? This is prior to my nephew being born. And she's like, oh no, he's way too young. He has no attention span. And I got really sad. I got really sad because I was just a godmother at this point. And I did get sad. I was like, oh, okay. So then fast forward to when Caleb was not, it was my second, it was our second, he was about just shy of 2. And it was one of my summer visits. And I was knitting a sweater for my friend's daughter. And I was using, it's a sweater I love, but the way the pattern is, I like to use a flag so I know like where I am, right? So he keeps coming over to me and giving me his phone. And I just got back from my Italy trip. So I was like, ciao, ciao, hello. Yes, yes, fabulous. And, so we had this game. And at one point, he took the pattern I was reading from and gave it to me. And I went, oh, this is you. This is you. Oh, amazing. This is a great report. And then he gave it to my sister, his mother, and involved it. And it was just this beautiful moment of seeing him acknowledge my art, but also find a way to be a part of it. And so then fast forward to the following summer when he was 3, he took, and I was actually working on a knit blanket for him. His birthday's in October. And by this point in the pattern, like I was kind of in that knit purl mode, so I knew I could interact. And I really make an effort to when I create around him and even my niece now, that I'm doing things that I can zone out with. Like if I don't draw around them because I do zone out and I want to be focused, I want to be engaged.
Mhm.
So I was at this point where I knew that, and I was kind of doing experiment. I was like, I want to see what he's going to do. And he loves garbage trucks, and he kept taking the balls of yarn that I was actually knitting with and putting it in things. And my sister looks at me and is like, "You're not getting those back." I'm like, "No, no, no, it's okay. It's okay." Like I wanted to see what he would do. Like I wanted to see his creativity come out. I wanted this bonding moment for us. Like, because it's such, and I feel like as an aunt, I feel it because I'm not there 24/7. It's such a short bonding window. And
Yeah.
he's at that age, he's not in school yet. The birthday parties and the sports schemes and the
Hmm.
recitals and all the things haven't started. So I'm like, it's this bonding period. So when I think of patience, I know I gave a long tangent on patience here, but
No, it's
that's
very
really,
good. Very interesting.
yeah. Oh, I'm glad because that's really like where all this came from. It came from my healing journey and wanting to develop closer relationships. And even though I'm not a mom yet, I do want to be a mother in my lifetime. I really feel strongly about that. And being a godmother, being asked to be my godchild's godmother was a huge honor. And then becoming an aunt, you realize you have a responsibility beyond you. So my healing journey became a lot bigger than me. It wasn't just me wanting to heal from the choice to heal from my traumas. It wasn't just me wanting to be a better version of me. It was also me wanting to be a good example.
Hmm.
So
Right.
when my nephew does go to school, I have this dream that he'll walk into kindergarten and be like, "Oh yeah, my aunt was on like Fallon last night," or like, "Yeah, my aunt put out a new book," or like, "My aunt's doing this now," and they're like, "Wait, your aunt's Kristina Lucia." You want them to be proud, but you also want to be a good person. You want to be a good version of you, you
Hmm.
want to be the best you can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean that's incredible. And I love that you're trying to really involve, like you said, no matter how old they are, they're absorbing. They're always listening, they're always watching. Again, no matter how old, even if they're like just born, they're still watching, right? And so for
Yeah.
you to be able to try to involve them, and it sounds like, because you didn't have that as a child, that you can make that up with your godchildren. That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
And tell me, so one of the things, I mean, you talked about these negative feelings and things like that, and I think that people probably struggle with, maybe they were treated similarly as children and they didn't get that validation. How do you think that a parent, maybe they're listening to this and they're thinking, I need to get better about that. How do you think that they can continue to incorporate, similar to what you said before, is just involving, but do you have other ideas about how a parent can sort of build that in themselves to learn patience and then also learn that like validation for their children?
Absolutely. So one thing I do in addition to my books is I always create coloring books, and I actually have a printable for your audience to enjoy. And I promote coloring not only because it's, you getting to know the characters, but also coloring is a low stimulation activity. And when we involve ourselves in activities like reading books to our children, coloring with our children, it relaxes us. And it has the same health benefits for us as children. Because the reality is by building patience and learning how to talk about our feelings or recognize feelings, these are skills that, like anything like walking, they need to be nurtured and practiced daily. And low stimulation activities give us something to do something to project what we're feeling. It gives us an opportunity to check in with ourselves. And also for children, it gives us a space to observe them and observe their communication patterns and how they're going to react. Like for example, my nephew and I'm a toucher. I'm a big time toucher. Because a lot of big thing about patience is knowing, okay, how do we communicate? What are our love languages? Like how do we relate? So I'm a huge toucher. I love to touch. Like I love to cuddle. Like I dog sit for my friends in Austin. And one of the reasons why I love going out there, I love these dogs so much. They're cuddle dogs. So I know for me, okay, I'm the cuddle dog. I'm the small dog person. I'm the cuddle dog person. Kids, same way. I love when kids love to hug. My nephew, he wants his space. Yes, he'll hug me. Yes, he'll come and find me, but I realize I need to give him space. And because I've learned to give him space, he always looks for me. Without fail, he'll always come and look for me somehow. And I've seen our relationship, whereas my niece will grasp for me. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing and great, and it's really identifying that, and really, I really think one of the greatest tools is finding things like, again, coloring. I love to give because it's simple, it's easy, it's low cost, and again, it's something, it's timeless. You can do it with your toddler, but you can also do it with your teenager because I realize a lot of families have kids at different age levels. It's something that everybody can do, and it's just a great way to relax and check in. And so the reason why I say coloring too, as opposed to other activities, so if you are going to do activities, again, and I do recommend low stimulation because when it comes to screens or movies, we're feeling an energy off of those screens and off of those devices. And so it does contort our connection with ourselves. It does contort us feeling because in order for us to observe somebody else, we need to be in a calm space. We need to be in a space of like, okay, I'm good. And we're not a bad person if we say, hey, I need to take a walk around the block, or, I need to go to the coffee shop for an hour and have a cup of tea. You're not a bad person if you need that. You're actually going to be a better version of yourself if you can get yourself into that calm space and then find a calming activity like reading a book or coloring that can relax. And an example that I can also give too that I went through recently. So I was staying, I was so grateful. My friend and her husband graciously had me out during the Christmas season to visit them after I was in Massachusetts, Rhode Island with my immediate family. And I said to my friend Julie, and I said, I'm cooking you guys dinner, like, because I do Christmas Day for my family. So I do the ravioli from scratch and all the good things. I'm Italian. We don't know, I don't know store-bought, like, I swear to God, like, I'm that woman at the butcher counter where they're like, not you again. Like, I'm sliced in my prosciutto, like my prosciutto. So I told her, and I did, it was great. I was able to cook a meal for them with the ravioli and the meatballs. And I was also able to bake the black bottom and a black bottom pie and make gingerbread cookies with her son, Johnny. And Johnny's 5 now, a year older than my nephew, Caleb. And I haven't baked with Caleb yet. And with Johnny is so into, and he's into baking. And I realized again, patience, because we were pouring things, and the whole container of breadcrumbs goes into the meat. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. We got this. We got this. We're gonna figure this out. And then when we were doing the pie, I realized because the black bottom pie, it's actually a Southern pie, which is really funny because I only cook Italian. If you like eggs and bacon, like I'm not your woman. Like I'm just like I don't know how to cook American. I really don't. It's really funny. Even though I'm born and raised in the United States, it's really awful. But Italian, I'm like, I got you. I got this. But so with the custard, you have to, like a pudding, you have to mix it on the stovetop. And I realized, wait. Johnny's not going to wait until the custard is thick. Like, I got to keep going. And so I was instructing him and helping him with the gingerbreads while stirring this. And because I know these gingerbread cookies inside out, because all my male friends love them. I bake them for my grown male friends all the time because they adore them. And I realized, but I also realized too, because I knew the recipe so well, I actually broke it down even further. I was like, oh, can you throw out the butter wrapper? Oh, how about you wash your hands? Like, and you really have to, I really had to break it down. But if I didn't know that recipe inside and out, it would not work
Mhm.
because the pie, anyone who out there that bakes with anything with custard or cream, it demands your attention because if you're not stirring constantly, it's gonna burn, it's not gonna go right. So that's the thing too. If that's why again, like when it's someone who's new to it, who's new to it. And again, I still feel like I'm new to it, even though I'm talking about it, because every child is different. The way I cook bake with Johnny is going to be different than the way I bake with Caleb and Adeline.
Mhm.
That's my niece and nephew. And when I baked with girls, and girls bake totally differently. They're much more like patient, whereas boys, it's like, what's next? What's next? What's next? So I'm like, I just gave you a task a second ago. And so that's why I'm saying simple activities, or if,
Mhm.
and again, like the more complex, like something like baking, again, maybe it's a recipe that you know inside out,
That's what
or
I was
that,
going to say. Like it's low stimulation for you because you knew it so
yes.
well.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And it was also, I realized that patience of, because again, half the sugar ends up on the counter, and I'm turning to my rheumatologist, like, I'm like, I will clean this, I will clean this. And I do. I always clean the kitchen really well. I'm very OCD about that. I go into my Virgo shadow a bit. So it's things like that. And the other big thing that I realized with this too, with building patience, is I am a perfectionist. I'm an overachiever. My editor calls me a triple A, which I feel like is very on point. Whenever I bake with kids or I color with kids, I put them as a priority. And I make sure I'm in the space that they're a priority because I remind myself these are not the Michelin star gingerbread cookies. This is about Johnny
Mhm.
baking. And it's funny because I remember I was baking with my friend's daughter, and she was about 9, 10 at the time. And we were at the decoration part of the cookies. And I was about to give a correction. At this point, I was deep in my healing journey. And I heard my little voice go, "Tch," and say, no, let them do what they want to do. Because I was always corrected. And granted, yes, I realized down the line it affected me. That's why I had to heal from these traumas. But I'm not saying I can prevent a child from going through a trauma, but one of the biggest things I got from my art teacher, because I started drawing so young, yes, she taught me discipline. She treated me just like the adults and the older kids. I still had to learn all the techniques. I still had to follow through and whatnot, but she always let me choose my subjects. She always gave me that freedom, and she never pushed me towards a subject. She always let me get there on my own. And I realized that's what I need to do too when I work with children. It's not about these stellar cookies because I am very anal. I am about the presentation. And that's where my mom and I would fight a lot because she would be like, oh, what's the big deal? I'm like, Ma, I like the presentation. I need a good presentation. Like, I'm very anal about that stuff. But, and again, that's also a skill that I've had to learn and that I'm developing and is still developing. And so that's again where, again, like you pointed out, where you create low stimulation activities, activities that you know inside out or that are easy for you and your little one. So you're able to focus on them. And at the same time, if you are not in it that day, if you don't have that space, because something I can share too, that I actually picked this up from Brene Brown. So I'm going to quote Brene Brown right now. And it's something that when I manifest for my significant other, from the family that I want, I thought, I want this in my relationship, like all my relationships as many as possible. So she and her husband, she's shared that they have this communication pattern where they were going through a period where both of them had parents that were ill, and there was just a lot of stuff going on in their lives with their family. And so they would check in with each other and say where they were. And if one was below 50%, they would say, they would say to the other, can you meet me? So if one's at 60 and one's at 40, one's at 50, can you meet me to 10% to get to get us to 50-50? And if one couldn't do that, they would work out a kindness plan with each other. And I thought that was really powerful because we all need to recharge, and we're not guaranteed to always be. And that's part of where my traumas also fell, because I was always expect to be available for everybody else,
Mhm.
but no one's ever available for me. Like I had an
Mhm.
incident over the holiday season where I one of my called my father, and I purposely did my own food shopping. Like I don't ask anyone. I know what I want. I'm a baker, I'm a cook, and it's just easier, you know what I mean? I don't want to put that pressure on my siblings and other family members. So anyway, so I forgot the Cool Whip for the top of the pie. I always forget the Cool Whip. And I'm spoiled because I'm in New York City. So I'm like, oh, just walk to the market. You know what I mean? And again, when you factor in gas and mileage, you don't want to waste money. So I call my father, and I could clearly hear that he was stressed. And he's one of those people that gets stressed very easily. And he's like, Christina, my hands are full. My hands are full. And I was like, it's okay, Dad. I'll go to the market and get the Cool Whip because I thought he was on his way home. And that's kind of like the story of my life is that it's always okay for me to cook the three-course meal, clean the kitchen, clean the dishes, make sure everything's set, but yet I can't ask for someone to go to the market and get me one
Mm-hmm.
ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I'm always working on in my life now and communicating. You know what? I need to recharge now.
Mm-hmm.
Or if
Right.
I'm going to go into the environment, I know I have to be there. But again, I mention it because when I am staying with my friends who have children, I see like you observe like how much energy it takes. And I've actually had another friend turn to me one time and say, and her daughter was, I think a year and a half, maybe 2 years old at this point. And so I was playing with her. And she said to me, Christina, I really feel bad because you're playing with her. And sometimes I don't, like I let her play on her own. And I said, well, don't feel bad because you're in it 24/7. Like I'm an aunt, that's my job. Like that's what aunts are for.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I fly in for. Like I fly in to give you a break or to like
Mm-hmm.
empty the dishwasher or fold. And I do this with my own sister too. It's like to me, that's the role of an aunt. Like I'm not living and breathing this yet. Like and so again, I feel like even to our peers, like having that patience with each other and realizing, okay, gotcha. But also having that space to communicate, well, you know what? I have other things I need to do, or you know what, I need time to recharge now, or I need
Mm-hmm.
this. Like, and even at Christmas, like I can mention this really quickly. I do my prep on Christmas Eve, and then my brother-in-law, who is amazing at the fish, because we do fish on Christmas
Mm-hmm.
Eve, and I'm not good at it. And so I love the ravioli and all that other stuff. So like I do my thing and like for Christmas Day. So I always prep. And then I make sure I get to my sister's at a certain time. And I actually asked her in advance. I texted her a week before and said, I'm shipping the kids presents now. If you and your husband want to open them earlier or later, I totally understand because we all know about the overstimulation and everyone wants the kids to open up their present now and have all the reactions and the kids get overwhelmed. And so my sister graciously said, well, why don't you come over earlier? So I was like, great. So I got this one-on-one time to open with everybody. But then roll around 5 o'clock, everyone starts coming in. And I was actually in the dining room playing with my niece. She was climbing into the folded chair on the floor. It was really cute. So I'm like in love. I'm just in love. So I'm playing with her and whatnot. And my nephew decides to go and play right where my brother-in-law is starting to cook. And I heard his frustration because again, I get it. He was working all day. He has a party of 15 people coming over. Fish needs to be done like right on the spot, and again, my nephew meant no harm. He just wants to be near daddy. And I know my brother-in-law is a great father, but again, and so I picked up Adeline and I said to my brother-in-law, do you want me to take the kids upstairs to the frog, the playroom over the garage? And he said, if you can get them up there. And so I said, Caleb, you guys show me your garbage trucks. You guys show me your garbage trucks. And so I did. I was able to get both kids upstairs and I was able to get us all in there for a good couple of hours and like a good hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours with Caleb. And again, I feel like that's what taking a step back and building patience and awareness does for us. It allows us to connect with our peers and help our peers
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's cooked a meal like that, like, and I know I do it, and I purposely do it in a way so no one's around me. And I tell people, but I will say to people, okay, you can come by this time. Because I know me, I get zoned and then I feel bad because I'm not talking to people and da da
Mm-hmm.
da. And like, I love the kids and I know I'm gonna get upset because I want to play with the kids, but I have all these hungry people and and
Mm-hmm.
we're not bad people. We're
Mm-hmm.
not bad people if we want to cook by ourselves, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, we're also not bad people for like, hey, I need no one in this
Right.
area of the
Yeah.
kitchen either. And,
Right.
and we all need help. We all need help. And we all need to do that. And again, these low stimulation daily activities like reading with our kids, coloring with our kids, these give us a space to develop that because again, it has to happen in a slow, organic pace. And because we're
Mm-hmm.
always evolving as adults, because the kids are constantly evolving. we also need that space to be like, oh, wait, this isn't working anymore.
Mhm.
Oh, wait, I gotta segue this. Like, especially like as the kiddos are getting older, like I realize that me telling Caleb to go look at garbage trucks may not work in a year. It may be something different, and maybe and, and then so quickly kind of turns to the teenagers where it's like, yup, no,
Mhm.
yes,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah, if you can get them to talk to you, you're doing good. I'm kidding. Well, these are all these great stories, and I know that you have a lot of the principles that you've just discussed that are built into your book series, your Bella book series. So tell us about the books.
Oh, amazing. Yes, yes. So my book series is the Bella Lucia book series. It's going to be a total of 15 books in all. And right now, book 12 just came out, and there are coloring books that go along with it too. I believe there's going to be 9 coloring books in all. I was actually going over the list because 4 more, either 3 or 4 more coming out this year. I have to double check my list. And so I do, they're all available on Amazon, et cetera, and on my website. If people are wondering where to go find those. And also, I do have coloring printables, which are always available. So I'll make sure I give you the link to my
Yes.
current printable for your audience. And I do have newsletters that go out to remind people, oh, hey, the Valentine's color printables are out, or the St. Patrick's Day printables are out. And of course, I do all the Halloween and Christmas stuff, so no fear at that. And the way my books are structured is, again, like I said earlier, they're all about communication and they're all about recognizing of feelings. And how I did this is I focus on transitions and skills that we all go through. So it's all relatable. And yes, there are pieces of me because I'm a Paris girl. I always go to Paris and Italy every year. So yes, Bella goes to Paris and Italy. But there are fundamentals, even if you haven't been to those areas, there are still fundamentals that we relate to. Like in Italy, it focuses on the difference of generations. And, Paris, it focuses on like being homesick and going on a plane and all of these things. And the other big thing I do in my books is that Bella, the main character, Bella Elephant, she works through the negative feelings. Sometimes we need to sit in the negative feelings and have patience with ourselves. And it can feel and I know this is not a feeling, so bear with me here. It can feel icky and it can feel frustrating. It can feel agitating and trapped and just, like just want to like break through. But that skill of being able to sit through the negative feelings and be able to work through them is so important. And that's really what Bella does. And the other big element of my books that I do, and I feel very strongly about this, an adult character relates to her as an adult. As an adult, I get scared. As an adult, I get homesick. As an adult, I get frustrated. I need to ask for help. And I think that's so important because it can be so easy to be condescending and say, oh, what's the big deal? Or I could have told you that. Or I get this all the time, or you should do this. And that's lack of communication right there. That space not to say, oh, what are you planning to do? Or, oh, I empathize. I've had a similar experience, etc. So that was really important for me to instill. And the other piece of it too is when Bella is able to really like start working through the feelings, like for example, like get stressed. There are a couple elements she learns how to snap, zipper, and tie a shoe, when her parents cheer her on, and she's also able to help. She's always able to help a friend, and she helps a friend through sharing and allowing that friend to have their takeaway of it. And that was something also really important. And then the last element of the books I really wanted to make sure I share is there are activities beyond the book in every book. And they are a gentle guide. And it's where I'm pointing out things I talk about in the series and giving gentle suggestions of how they can be applied to your family. And the reason why I say gentle guide is because at the end of the day, you know your child best. You know, you know their communication powers. You know your spouse. You know your relatives. Like you know what goes on in your home. Like there are certain things that when I'm in a house, like I really make an effort. And like it's ironic because like my I know it's not children, so bear with me. But when I dog sit for my friends, like I've dog sat enough where I can pick up the dog's mannerisms and be like, okay, okay, got it. This is going on now, or this is happening. But at the same time, I do text the boys and say, hey, this happened. Should I be watching this? Or hey, is this okay? Same thing with my sister and her children. When Caleb was learning to talk, even though he was talking, they were still teaching him sign language. And I gifted him, because I'm a huge Hungry Caterpillar fan, as I'm sure many people are. Love, love, love,
Love
love
that
Eric
book.
Hall.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
he's amazing, right? And
Hmm.
I got Caleb the Christmas Peekaboo book where it was the Hungry Caterpillar in different Christmas trees. And by the second round, he knew to look for the caterpillar. And he kept going more and more. And the first time he did this, I asked Laura, that's my sister, I said, "Oh, does this mean more?" And she confirmed yes. And so even then, even though, I mean, I consider myself an intelligent, intuitive woman, but it never hurts to ask. And that's why, again, with the guides, like I can observe things, I can see things, but I still, again, at the end of the day, you're living and breathing it.
Hmm.
And you deserve that space to apply it to your family and apply it to your child. And the biggest way I grow as a creative in all the forms of art that I do is by giving people the space to react to me. And I've seen when people say, "Oh, my child of this age read your book and reacted this way," or "My child this way," and they all react differently, and it's so beautiful seeing that. And it's so amazing seeing people react to your art, and
Hmm.
react to your words and seeing and going in with this open mind of like, what's going to happen? Who's
Hmm.
going to respond to this? Who's going to gravitate towards this? And
Hmm.
that's how we grow. And so that's really the goal for the activities beyond the books. And I do crochet my characters too. I do crochet Bella. I should have pulled her out for this call. My apologies, everybody. But again, I also focus with her and I'm actually manufacturing her right now. I create all Bella has 5 friends in the book, so all 6 characters. I do crochet them both in a
Crocheted. Oh.
stuffy and a lovey. Yeah, I'm an
Oh.
avid crocheter. I'm also a knitter too, as well. And so I hope to be able to develop like a knit children's wear knitting at some point. Like
Oh,
that's also
wow.
a dream of mine. I actually knitted my niece a sweater. It's like the same sweater I was knitting for my friend's
Oh.
daughter when Caleb took my pattern when I share that
Hmm.
story. It's like the
Hmm.
same pattern, but with Adeline's sweater, I actually made an elephant applique to go on the back. And so
Oh.
like that was kind of like my first like
Hmm.
step, I
Hmm.
feel, moving towards to how would this look. But I am manufacturing stuff via Bella because I want to get my price point down. I want to get because when you're hand making everything, the price points are really high. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to get things like more reasonable.
Hmm.
And even with everything I'm creating, the stuffies, like, and I'm working with a UK company, we are aiming for a Jellycat feel, but I was very clear when we started. I said, I want, and even they said to me, simple goes further. I'm
Hmm.
also focusing on everything being low stimulation. And
Hmm.
so with my crochet characters, I was very big on that. Like, I want things that are simple, like a simple cut. Now, I'm a fancy gal. Like, I love fancy things. I love couture and whatnot, but I was very clear, like, simple color pattern for my crochet characters. And even going into the manufactured area, like, I really wanted things that are low stimulation. And I refer back to I'm going to quickly refer to my all-time favorite. I'm a huge Robert Redford fan. I adore his work. I'm a huge fan. And it's funny because when I miss my mother, I always pop in a Redford movie. He was our mutual favorite. That was like our bonding moment, I feel like, and just love his work. And he said something really powerful in an interview I heard him say once where he said this is when like see all like the camera gimmicks were coming and whatnot, and he said people get so distracted by the razzle dazzle as they're missing the heart. And
Hmm.
I actually love black and white movies. I feel like you're able to focus. And again, this all falls back to what I was saying about low stimulation activities. You're able to focus more on the nuances and the detail.
Hmm.
And even in my books, I have some Hitchcock moments. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. And so like I do have this like one thing I do in my books. It's like my Hitchcock signature because I was like, I want that for the future. I want this for as my brand grows, I want to be able to grow this further. But I really do believe in that, like this simplicity and being open-minded. And another example I could share really quickly that I thought was really powerful. So when going back to Robert Redford, so when he directed Ordinary People, he didn't have the vocabulary to talk to everybody in the production team. And so he was actually the camera guy for this one shot. because he was an artist, he was able to draw things out. And the camera goes like, oh yeah, that's like a blah 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 blah. Like the cinematographer was like, yeah, I know what you want. And it was such a cool moment, like that he used his skills to communicate. And again, I wanted to share that because I feel like, again, looping back to, well, why slow stimulation, Christina? Why are you saying coloring and reading with your children and like all these simple things when we could just like watch a TV show?
Hmm.
Because those simple activities, they don't only calm us down and give us that space to observe and feel, but these are also skills
Hmm.
when we're out and about that we can do anywhere. Like, how many times do we hear the story of the cocktail napkin, like drawing something on the cocktail napkin or writing your number on the cocktail napkin?
Hmm.
The reality is people connect people. And the more skills we have to communicate, and also the more patience we have to communicate, and we have that space, because clearly that cameraman, I'm sure Robert Redford sketched quickly because I've seen him, like I've seen that in his films. If I ever get to meet this man, I swear, my first question, do you get to doodle? Is that like, did you really have to push it in the feature of your doodles? In President's Men, all the President's Men and 3 Days in Condor, because he does that, he doodles. But again, for the cameraman, obviously he's the boss, but still to have that patience
Hmm.
to let someone draw it out, because I've seen people that would say like, oh God, like I'll figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
Like I'll just do a couple shots for you and we'll see if it's what you want. But again, when we're able to have patience,
Hmm.
we're able to communicate more effectively with each other, and we're able to
Hmm.
communicate more effectively. Our relationships grow and they get deeper and they get more beautiful. And it really, it's just, it's like this feeling of ecstasy that you just feel
Hmm.
like, oh, like that buzz of like,
Hmm.
what else can I do? All of a
Hmm.
sudden, it's not the Himalayas. All of a sudden, it's a hill. And it's like, of course
Hmm.
I can climb that hill. Of course I can
Hmm.
do this.
That's awesome. I think that's a great way to bookend the whole conversation. I really appreciate it, Christina. Of course, we will make sure that all of the show notes have your links to your printables, to your books, to any, all the things, to make sure people can find you and find out more about you. So before I let you go, what's the best way for people to find you either on social media or on your website? Just give us that.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So my website is CristinaLucia.com, and everything is there. I have all my printables there, all the books are there, etc. And if people are worried about like, I know Amazon Prime, I get it. I adore Amazon Prime too. I promise all the links are there to the other things. I'm also very active on Instagram. Kristina Lucia Pezza is how you find me on Instagram, and also on Pinterest. I'm working on developing my Pinterest further. And you can also find me, Kristina Lucia Pezza. I am working on my YouTube channel as well. But I will say of all four things, I will say my website, and I would love to have everyone on my email list. I am working on power partner relationships. For example, like I am working on partnering, developing partnerships with women, and it's mostly women. I'm not saying men aren't in this space, but it's mostly women right now I'm finding that are in the sensory learning space. So I'm actually embarking on my first product collaboration with Hillary from Handcrafted Happiness of Hillary, and she creates wooden pieces that go into sensory tables. So she actually created a first product for us to collaborate on, where it's based on Bella's trip to Paris, where she created a map of Paris and she created these inserts so you can match the inserts to where Bella went in the book.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
I'm excited. Yeah, yeah. So I'm excited to do more with her.
Hmm.
And also I'm hoping other brands are going to come through. So these are all things I'm sharing in my on my newsletter. And I'm also writing blogs on it too, because when you embark on power relationships, it's also about, meeting again, what I said about Brene Brown, meeting each other halfway. So I'm very
Hmm.
big on like cross promotion and sharing all of this, and also creating a space where it's you have everything, because I
Hmm.
think how we grow as artists is realizing, you know what, this is my strength. And
Hmm.
I need to surround myself with people. I think I'm going to wrap by saying, like, Robert Redford does his sneakers. I know I'm a huge Robert Redford fan. I know I'm like, I have to meet this man one day. But anyways, in sneakers, he does that. Like the character surrounds himself with other people that are really highly specialized. And so that's generally what I'm hoping to grow with my brand and aligning myself with other brands, because the reality is we're stronger in numbers,
Mhm.
and we're stronger when we develop people that have other visions and
Mhm.
think of things. Because even though I'm a creative, and I guess I'm a creative in many ways, like I'm not good with sculpture. I'm not good with engineering things. Like I don't I hate when I have to measure. I hate measuring. That's why kids love baking with me. I'm just like, I'll throw the flour in. It looks
Whatever.
good, it looks great. Like, but again, I kind of have this instinct. So like I don't have to measure, but when I have to measure, I'm like, oh, why do I have to
Hmm.
measure today? But yeah, those are the best ways to find me. And I'd love to share more with everybody. But thank you so much
Awesome.
for having me. This has been so amazing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So much interesting information for our listeners. So appreciate meeting you too. You're just a bundle of energy. I can't believe all the things you're doing. So, Christina, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Mary Jo.
This has been the Teaching Your Toddler podcast with Mary Jo Tinlin. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll find us on our website at teachingyourtoddler.com, as well as on Facebook at Teaching Your Toddler, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Teaching Toddler. So join us again, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.